Hi, welcome to Write More Light. My name is Sarah with the Midwest Writing Center, and this is a web series. Today, we are doing a small little craft lesson. Other days, I'll interview somebody awesome and intelligent and active in the arts. Today is a little lesson day. After I talk about the topic for a little while, I will give you updates at the Midwest Writing Center, and ordinarily I would give you a prompt, but today is all about prompts. So you'll have a variety to choose from. The only stipulation to using those prompts is I ask you to set yourself a timer unless you've got a long stretch of time ahead of you. Um, I say 5 minutes is your minimum. Of course, don't stop if you've got something good going. And just make sure that you do that writing. Make sure that you get that in. So, okay. Today we're talking about how prompts work and how to make them work for you. And most of the reason I chose this is because I wanted to know. I have a hard time responding to prompts, and if you've ever taken a workshop with me, I always make sure folks know that like the prompt is a suggestion. You can write whatever comes. It doesn't have to be any specific form. If you end up journaling, great. I never make the prompt be strict because I sometimes have trouble with prompts. And in most settings, we're not required to turn in our writing, right? It's not homework for most of us. We're doing it because we want to write. So, you know, write what comes. But I wanted to know why we always use writing prompts, um, and how they work. Do they work? They do work. Um, and and then how to make them work for me because my problem is probably that I'll get into it. I get a little stuck in my head and it's not super effective, right? When you're supposed to be writing and you're not. Um, anyway, some prompts are super effective for me, but prompts range in styles all over the place. We've got like one word prompts, we've got like atmospheric prompts where you're like, here's your setting or your vibe. Right. Sometimes they're like situational and they get really specific and they're like, person is sitting in the forest on a wooden chair wearing sandals. Something moves to their left. What is it? And like you have to write that. Some are ekphrastic, that means they respond to other art, you know? I see a painting that moves me and I respond to it, or the music playing is getting like a rhythm in my head or in my body. Or I saw a movie and I want to respond to it. It got ideas going for me. Some prompts require you to use specific language. I think those can be really fun, but I'm not probably very good at sticking to them. I'm like, yes, these words have created a vibe for me. And then I'm like, well, I didn't use the word laundry basket, but it's fine, right? Some contests will do that, and I think that's cool. I would not win that contest if I failed to use the word laundry basket, and the word laundry basket was required. You know. Um, Anyway, prompts have a wide variety of, they could be all sorts of things. But when it comes down to it, it's helpful to be able to use whatever prompt we've been presented with. And so that was sort of my focus for this topic. I looked into how prompts work and beyond what felt really obvious to me after seeing it. I learned some other things too about like why that is the case and etc. So first and foremost, prompts make your brain stretch. That was what I thought was annoyingly straightforward. The prompts are pretty much not expected, right? You don't say, give me a writing prompt, and then know what's going to happen. Unless you're like in a very weird specific class where it's like, we're going to write about dishes today, and your prompt is flatware, you know? Um, Prompts are usually unexpected. And if you're not with me and you don't get too many options, You're basically pointed down a path, and your brain is going to follow that path. Often, when I give lots of options, I like leave a vague one, and then I'm like, and here are some like more specific things you can do if you want more direction. But I think that probably I give too many options. Um, but that path that we're being led down is something that I do have trouble with, and I imagine other people do too, because sometimes it's really hard to do that stretch. I don't necessarily like have something that pops out at me from the prompt, and or I don't have any experience with whatever the topic of the prompt is. And so my brain is trying to stretch, and I'm not used to that particular workout. I'm sorry about this analogy, but it is accurate. Unfortunately, it's going to keep being accurate. Um, so when I'm in that situation, I don't know if this is good advice, honestly. But what I tend to do is journal about the prompt a little bit, and that's advice I give all the time when I'm struggling with writing. I journal a little bit, and it tends to get whatever juice is flowing or whatever. Um, yeah, so that tends to loosen me up a bit. Or alternatively, sometimes I will make a list of potential responses because I'm uncomfortable and I'm trying to just like get into the prompt. The problem with that, of course, is that if you've got a 5 minute free write, you don't necessarily actually get to the writing part. Now, I love lists. I think lists are an awesome form, but when that's not what I'm doing, then it will be good for starting a story in the future when I return to it, which I will definitely do. So first thing, they make your brain stretch. Next, they make you use the muscle that you've stretched. Uh, and the thing about that is it makes it easier to use next time you're given a prompt. So that again feels annoyingly straightforward, but it's that stretching thing. Once you've used it, your body knows how to use it. And one of my notes is this analogy is one to one. Stretching your imagination is really hard for some people. I'm people. So when I think about, so I might think about a prompt. I might think a prompt is really hard and like avoid it, and then I'm not using my imagination. So I want to do a brief aside here on imagination. Um, I don't. When I say imagination, I'm not thinking about high fantasy and playing make believe or Disney movies or whatever it is. But that tends to be what I think of when folks say imagination, and that's not what imagination means. Um, so I totally do use my imagination all the time when I like overthink a choice I have to make, or like get stressed out about something that isn't real, or like daydream about what if I were a nurse in the Civil War. That's using your imagination. But when I turn toward writing, I start to be like, well, I don't know anything about the technology of the Civil War. Uh, and like, yeah, I could do research or I could write the thing and just fake it, but I don't. I stop myself. And I've sort of leaned into this problem that I have with prompts by having the majority of what I write be prose nonfiction. If I were writing poetry about hypothetically being a nurse in the Civil War, you know what's funny is that is not the example I left myself. Like if I were saying, okay, I'm going to write a poem about this concept, I feel like I would have fewer logical restrictions, right? But it's not where my brain goes. So that's the other bit. I need to stretch more. Um, and I get to sort of because I get to do this work, right? Um, but I still I struggle a lot because I don't always, pardon the alarm, I don't always lean into it. lean into the prompt, lean into the difficulty. And that's a huge, huge thing for me. And I imagine other people that like when something's hard, we have resistance to it. And that's not helpful, especially as artists. So that's why I need prompts. Hypothetically, any prompt can work for any writer. Some prompts, like the one where I was talking about somebody is sitting on a wooden chair in the forest. Some prompts are super specific. Perhaps I was saying he's sitting on a dragon in the forest. Um, but we get to manipulate how we use them. So if I'm not writing about a world that includes dragons, like I'm using a prompt to help me on a fresh project, but I don't know anything about dragons. It just seems like a fine place to be because then you can make up whatever you want about dragons. Um, then maybe I don't go with fiction. I don't have to. Maybe I go with a poem and the dragon's a metaphor. Maybe I go with nonfiction and it leads me into um learning to read on your own and veering toward fantasy as escapism or um you get to you're playing pretend with your friends or your kids or whatever it is. We can prompts are there as prompts. They're a nudge. You're not stuck between their parameters. I hope this helps me. Um, so assuming you're responding to prompts in earnest, this is the next bit of how they work. First, they make you stretch. Next, they make you use that muscle you're stretching. Then, assuming you're responding to the prompts in earnest, they get you writing. And that's the point, first of all. And that's also a muscle we want to keep practiced. That's some muscle memory we want. Um, the point in the end is to be writing. So it doesn't matter how on theme or good your response to the prompt is. It doesn't matter if you end up like keeping the piece or what is it? People say put it in a drawer, or like publishing it, or it turns into a novel. It doesn't matter if all you do is 5 minutes on the prompt. It got you writing. That's the point. And muscle memory makes writing easier. That's true. I'm this is facts. And so, I know it's kind of boring. I didn't turned out the information was all pretty straightforward and not super complicated. Uh, so it's kind of at the end of the day, it's kind of like a body in motion stays in motion. Additionally, there's gobs of research that's come out in like the last 10 years that says that motivation follows productivity rather than the opposite. So it doesn't work if we wait to be motivated before we start something. We will never start it because we won't be motivated. But when we just get started, we're more likely to continue working and we're more likely to get excited about it. So this is just another reason that prompts are cool. Okay, so the next part of this, how do we make prompts work for us? Um, we have to do them. It's the first bit. So I'm going to do a little bit of screen sharing. I'm going to do this live with you. It'll be fresh and, live. Uh, I'm probably so I'm going to look at prompts and I'm going to talk about them. I'm not going to write live on camera with you. We used to do that, Ryan and I, on this web series. But it turns out that people don't want to watch someone else writing silently. So I will not make you watch me write. I'll talk about the prompts. I'll talk about my response to the prompt as it relates to the way that I write. I'll make it about me. If like as best I can, I have a tendency to be like, or you could do this idea, like the dragon thing. I've never, as far as I can remember, written about a dragon. Um, yeah. So I'll talk about my response to the prompt as it relates to my work and how I would envision using the prompt. Hopefully, when I turn this video off, I'll get started on that. Um, Yeah. So first and foremost, the only rule we've got here is that we have to accept the prompt. So there's there's our sorry, I'm looking for the window I'm going to share. There's our premise. We have to accept the prompt. I opened up a bunch of windows earlier, so we're going to open on a prompt already there. I don't know what the prompt is. Uh, just wanted a heads up, you're not missing anything. Okay, so this is from Oblique Strategies, which I actually have two windows up that are Oblique Strategies. Um, they are from Brian Eno. They were created for musicians, but we use them a lot at the Writing Center because they tend to be surprises. And surprises are good for this. So, which parts can be grouped? Um, the first image I get in my mind is of like when you're in elementary school and you have those little plastic toys where you learn about fractions and they like come together and come apart and you've got like 5 squares equals a line and then I meant to say 10. 10 squares equals a line and then 10 lines equals a bigger square. And right, and you're learning about fractions. So that's the first part, the first thing that I thought of. I could see now I'm not super comfortable working with poetry, but I could see a poem coming out of that, coming out of like a specific memory about that. You could certainly write a an essay about it if you had a lot to say about it, or you had a like something to braid it with. Um, you can I can see it also working with the body. Um, and really anything where you say like and like, like goes with like. But what's coming to mind for me is like body parts. So I don't know. I don't know if I would be answering the question so much as thinking about the way that we make categories. This is a really hard one. So then, okay, so if I was going to make a list of potential answers to the prompt, like that's basically what I'm saying aloud here. I think body parts would be really interesting, and I'm going to actually write that down somewhere. I have a notebook. I actually have too many notebooks in front of me, and that is today's problem. So, um, body parts as groupings. Thank you for hanging out with me while I wrote that down. So I'm going to switch over to the other oblique strategies, which I think is like the official, because I've never actually seen this website before, but I couldn't find this one, which you'll see is bookmarked. Could not find it right away. Um, so this one, which is stony.sb.org/eno/oblique.html. You can also buy a deck of cards if you want to pull them out as a card, but the internet's here. There's a lot of them. What is the reality of the situation? I could see first, like whatever it is that you're like dealing with in life seems like the first obvious thing. Um, I guess my brain went blank about what is happening in my life, and that's fine because I'm talking to a screen. Um, but I could see this being really fun to do with something surreal, especially if it's like I don't know what is real. That could be really, really fun. I think this could translate really to any genre pretty easily. If I were to sit and write this right now, my impulse is to describe my physical surroundings. And, that's fine. Next, I'm going to slip over to, I have to move the little bar that tells me I'm screen sharing. Okay, slip over here to Bernadette Myers, excuse me, list of journal ideas. I'm going to scroll through. So some of them are like very specific about, yeah, they're writing prompts. So we're going to scroll a little bit and okay. Is there a prompt for this? Nope. Writing experiment is where the thing we're under. Of sense impressions, memory pictures. Okay, so that is kind of funny phrasing, but what I'm getting from that is vignettes. and memory. So my brain is going to nonfiction. Um, and what happened first in my brain was I imagined a photograph. So then I will, following that thought process, choose the photograph that comes to mind and write a vignette on the image. So it'll be less narrative and more like they're smiling, they're wearing clothes, they have feelings. So we sort of dance around a topic with that. I'm gonna do another one. Weird amount of scrolling. Okay. The possibilities of synesthesia in relation to language and words. The word and the letter as sensations, colors evoked by letters, sensations caused by the sound of a word as apart from its meaning, etc., and the effect of this phenomenon on you. For example, write in the water on a moving vehicle. So first, synesthesia is when one's senses sort of overlap in the brain. I don't know the science of it, but a lot of people with synesthesia say, they can, when they hear music, they can see colors. Some people say that like different letters and numbers have personalities. Um, some people have trouble with reading because the text on the page is black on white, but each letter or each sound should have a different color. I think that one's really interesting. Um, but it could be really any of the senses that get that overlap like that. So, using the idea, the possibilities of synesthesia in relation to writing and words. So, I think this is really just, I mean, anything can be anything. But for me, this would be more of a sensory writing challenge. I wouldn't be worried about developing much about it, just the expression of sensation. Um, okay, what do we have? What else? Okay. So then I just searched it up and we're gonna click one and then we're gonna scroll. Okay, sure. Let's find poets and writers. They're fine. We like them plenty. Okay. Mm. Oh, these say genres. That's silly. Who needs genres for their prompts? I've chosen the poetry one. That wasn't on purpose, but I didn't like feeling boxed in, and I feel like a poetry prompt can kind of go anywhere. Um, the the prompt is here. Okay, lost in familiar places. Oh, this is new. This is a couple days old. Australian author Gerald Murnane talks about being drawn to the bewildering and at the same time satisfying feeling of getting lost in familiar places in an interview in the winter 2024 issue of Paris Review. I can very readily get myself lost in strange country towns or on back roads, Murnane says, knowing all the time where I am, that there's no threat to my safety, that I can navigate myself home eventually. Write a poem that explores the state of being lost, whether from memory of a childhood incident, visiting a town, walking a new route, or perhaps from simply feeling lost in a chaotic or difficult situation. Amidst the bewilderness, are you able to amidst the bewilderment, are you able to find something you enjoy about being lost? So this brings me to, that was a really good segue. I wasn't sure how I was just gonna transition. Um, so yeah, that tells you exactly what to do, which is fine. And good even, because sometimes that's more helpful, right? So then what I think is the most common, what I see most frequently in writing classes or or similar is someone will bring, like whoever's facilitating will bring a piece of writing that speaks to them in whatever way, and the prompt will be a response to the piece of writing. So I feel like usually it's a poem just because poems, it's easier to find shorter poems. Like I can't say we've got a writing prompt that's a response to a novel because I can't expect you to read a novel while we're sitting here together. And also, that's just unrealistic. So a lot of the times it's novel. Sometimes, geez, a lot of the times it's a poem, but it can absolutely be prose. And then the The prompt will say, look at the way the poem did this thing, respond and respond to that particular element in one of two ways. And that's for me my favorite kind of prompt because I feel like I have a relationship with the prompt before I'm even given the assignment, right? Because I have engaged with the content that I'm responding to. I have already thought about the content that I'm responding to, and now I'm being told to look at a very specific element, maybe not that specific, don't really matter, um, and use it for myself. So I love that kind of prompt. But in this setting, and generally online or like on social media, when people give prompts, it's more likely not one that comes with a reading, not one that comes with an instructor or a facilitator. It's I'm trying to get my juices flowing. Help. So, um, for what it's worth, if you're ever looking for those like long form prompts that involve reading, hit us up. We got you. Um, Obviously, the internet has gobs of the other kind of prompts, but if you're looking for something a little more in depth or a little more that has a little more necessary engagement, let us know. We've got them saved and ready for you. Um, so that's it. It was a lot less complicated than I anticipated. I don't think I thought very hard about the topic before I researched it because it all seems pretty straightforward. So yeah, there's your lesson on prompts. You've got a list of prompts you can work with now for your 5 to 10 minutes. But before you leave, I'm gonna give you updates on the Midwest Writing Center and wish you well. Um, well, what is up this week? We've got a fiction workshop going the next 3 Saturdays of March. It's with Jason Tanamore, who's a prolific and very smart novelist who it seems like he can answer every question. If you're interested in learning more about him, we did a Write More Light interview with him a couple of weeks ago, and I ran out of things to ask him because he knew everything. It's a little embarrassing, but it's true. He's very, very smart, and he teaches people how to fix and unravel and braid up their novels. That's his job. He's very good at it. Um, so those, yeah, you can take those three, all of them, just one of them, just two of them. That's at the Midwest Writing Center, so it's in person from 10:30 to noon on the 8th, 15th, and 22nd of March. Um, what else do we have? Um, my goodness. Okay. At 1 p.m. next Thursday, March 13th, we're premiering a new program called Memory Keepers. That's gonna be really cool. It's run by Sue Collins, and it's about preserving family stories and family histories for your family, for your descendants, for your siblings, because your stories deserve to be preserved. And this is going to be partially instructional on like how to do that, how to keep these records, how to tell these stories, and partially it's having an encouraging community who's on the same journey as you. Sue is really, really wonderful. She really knows what she's doing. Um, she's kind and fun, and I'm excited to go. You will still have a Write More Light with me. Um, but it, but I will also be with her. So you can find this video anytime. You have to go see the Memory Keepers. Again, that's Thursday, March 13th, 1 p.m. at the Midwest Writing Center. So that's at the ground floor of the Rock Island Public Library. Um, we've got a lot of really good Write More Light stuff coming up, but you can access that information really easily. Then, okay, this is exciting. We're premiering another new program, which we're calling Writer Regroup, which is a writing group. So we will get together a couple times a month and we will write on the days when I'm there. It's not always going to be me. So that's probably a bonus too. And it's not always going to be at the same place, because we want to make sure that, we're meeting folks where and when works for them. So the first one's going to be at the Atlas Collective on March 25th at noon from 12 to 2. That's a Tuesday. Um, so I'll be there for that one. And then if folks have questions about the Writing Center or want to do a little chatting because they're trying to work through something in their whatever they're working on, that's cool. Other groups might be quieter, but I will be there and I will be writing. And that's the point. If folks want prompts, I'll have that available, but the point is just to be around other people who are writing while they're writing. So the first one will be March 25th. That's Tuesday, 12 to 2 at the Atlas Collective. That's in downtown Moline. Oh, what else do we have going on? Okay, we're getting into April with my planning. My goodness. April 3rd, also at the Atlas Collective, is a reading with Tatiana Schlote Bonet at I want to say 6 p.m. She's the author of Such Lovely Skin and The Mean Ones, both horror novels. She's also very, very smart, and I've interviewed her for um, Write More Light, this web series that you're watching right now. So you can look up that interview and see. It's going to be a really great time. That'll be a reading, and there'll be some time for Q&A. Coming up soon, April 12th, that's a Saturday, we've got a workshop with Anai Cass called Transmissions from the Ancestors. That'll be 11 to 1. I wrote over the number in my planner. And that'll be on centering your mind around your ancestors, your family history, and then writing into that. It'll be really cool. I've also interviewed her here, but I interviewed her about her book, which is called Reparations of the Heart. So we will not, so there is a prompt that she provides at the end of that video, which relates to this upcoming class, but doesn't really give anything away. I also neglected to mention March 15th is our next Spectra reading. That's the release party of the Foster Stall Chapbook series. So we're going to have we had two selections. We had the official selection and the editor's pick for this release. So we've got poet Amy. Oh no, I'm so afraid I'm going to say her name wrong. Whittemore. Her book Hesitation Waltz is just a beautiful, like unflinching book of poems that deals with, you know, the way that life can get us down. And then Atonality by Joshua Bonsack is a very short book of essays that relate to music and grieving and being young in the Midwest. So those are both really, really gorgeous books. I can tell you I have read them at least 6 times each, and I still love them both. So that honestly is saying a lot. Um, okay, that's what I got for you. Please, as always, write more light into your life.